I wasn't given a start date, so I just went ahead and got an apartment and started going into the office. And the place was a mess. There were wires everywhere, and I didn't know where I was supposed to sit. It was very confusing. So I kept going to work, and I kept asking people, what do I do? Where am I supposed to sit? Where's my boss? And I had a lot of questions.
Welcome back to the Cart Barn Podcast. Today we have a really fun conversation with someone who spent years behind the scenes during the early days of the Golf Channel.
Joy Green was there when the network was just getting started, and she had a front row seat to some incredible moments in golf. Lots of good stories from Joy about the Golf Channel.
Yeah, in this episode she shares stories from those early days, including what it was like seeing a young Tiger Woods hanging around the studio long before he became the biggest name in the game.
So why don't we just jump on into our conversation with Joy Green.
We are joined today by Joy Green. Joy worked at the Golf Channel, and as we are documenting the Golf Channel's origins from Alabama. And so, Joy, welcome to the Cart Barn.
Thanks for having me.
Joy, it's a treat to get you on to hear some of the behind-the-scenes stories of those early days of the Golf Channel. Why don't you just kind of dive in? You mentioned you came over from local news, I think.
Yes.
How did that whole thing transpire? What were you doing before you got the job? And, when you got what was it like when you joined the Golf Channel?
So I'd come from local news and had mailed my resume to this up-and-coming network being launched in Orlando. I worked in local news in West Palm at the ABC affiliate, and I worked 4 a.m. to noon producing Good Morning America news cut-ins.
Okay.
So I was really entry level, and I was looking for an entry level position at the Golf Channel, and I got lucky and they hired me.
Was the local news, was that your first job out of college?
No, I'd done some internships and that were paid. So I'd work at the CBS affiliate in West Palm, and I'd work for a tabloid TV show and the old Sally Jesse Raphael show.
Oh, wow. That's
I remember
back.
That show.
Yeah.
What
was the attraction of going to the Golf Channel? What was your background in golf, or did you have a background in golf?
I didn't really. I was one of the few that didn't really have a background in golf. I think they hired me more for my TV production skills. But I had tried out for the women's golf team at the University of Miami when I was a student there, and I was in way over my head with those girls. I thought it would just be something fun. I had no idea Division I golf was so competitive, and it was all internationals. It was wild. So I just liked golf. I'd been in the golf club in college, and I'd grown up around my friends all playing golf, and I played a little bit and had some really bad equipment that I used, and I just liked the whole golf lifestyle, and I was a TV person.
So tell me you didn't show up for tryouts at the University of Miami with like a mismatched set of clubs and playing some old...
I did.
And how did your teammates or alleged teammates react to that?
No one even looked at me. I was so embarrassing. I knew immediately. Awesome. I was cut after like the first day.
Hey, you made it through one day anyway.
Yeah, they were just being polite.
Well, I bet none of them were on the Golf Channel.
No, they didn't go on to be at the Golf Channel. Not at all.
How did you find out about the Golf Channel was hiring, and did you think you even had
I read about it. Yeah. I had read about it in Broadcasting Magazine because remember I was a TV person. So I read about it in Broadcasting Magazine that there was going to be a new sports network out of Orlando, Florida that dedicated to golf. And I thought, well, I can do that. I've covered golf in local news. I just got lucky because the girl that pulled my resume and held on to it at the Golf Channel, she had also attended the University of Miami. So that was the connection.
Oh, that's great.
That's good. Yeah.
I think when we talked to Mr. Gibbs, and I mean, it was a very hectic time trying, they're trying to get funding, they're trying to get a studio built, everything was going on. And then the hiring process, I think I don't know how much vetting they were doing on their hiring.
I don't think much, but they did see that I had a television experience. So they probably thought, okay, she'll be okay.
Yeah.
A 13 or 14 year experience for you, right?
It did, yes. And I was very dependable, and I worked my way up very quickly through the company, and I was loyal. So I'm proud of that. And I was a good hire, I think.
Well, tell us a little bit about what went on in those early days from the time, because you came in the fall, and you had about 3-4 months or so before the Golf Channel went live.
Okay, this is so funny. So I was hired in October, and I wasn't given a start date, and I had never worked for a startup television network. So I just went ahead and got an apartment and started going into the office. And the place was a mess. There were wires everywhere. And I didn't know where I was supposed to sit. My boss, who came down from ESPN, he hadn't started. It was very confusing. So I kept going to work, and I kept asking people, what do I do? Where am I supposed to sit? Where's my boss? And I had a lot of questions, and they just said, well, just come back in a couple months. So I waited. I went back to West Palm and hung out at my parents' house, and they're like, do you have a job or not? And I'm like, I guess. And then I made myself a date, or somebody either called me, or I made myself a date, or I got something in the mail that said my start date was January 3rd, 1995. So that gave me some type of direction. So I went to work on January 3rd, 1995. Oh, wow. But I was hired in October and went and reported to work with nowhere to sit.
And no paycheck?
No, I didn't get a paycheck until like the second or third week in January.
Oh, gosh.
This is like a Seinfeld episode.
Yeah.
It was so bizarre. My parents were mad. They were like, what's going on? You quit your job, at Channel 25. And I didn't care. I wasn't really worried about it. I just figured it'd all work out in the end.
Oh, you were young and, just kind of carefree.
Young and dumb. I had gotten an official letter in the mail, not with the start date, but welcoming me to the Golf Channel. It was from Michael Whalen, who was the vice president of production then, and it had my salary on it, which was really low. And I don't even remember discussing the salary when I had my interview. So I knew I had a job because I had this official paper on letterhead. I just didn't know when to start.
So cool. When you get there January 3rd, were things more organized at that point?
A little bit. I went into a meeting with HR with Jennifer Mills, who was one of our lead female anchors at Golf Central, and a few other people, maybe a group of 5 of us, and they went over like health insurance and things like that. And I was like, okay, well, no one's ever discussed this with me before, so I must have a job, but I still didn't have a seat.
How long did it take you till they gave you a seat?
I think they said, I think I moved from cubicle to cubicle for the first 6 months of 1995. And then, even then, it changed from time. That whole first year was really discombobulated and disorganized. And so I just ended up sitting in the newsroom because I was hired under the news department umbrella. So I just would find a place to sit in the newsroom. And then I kind of realized that's where I needed to be. So that's where all the action was. That's where all the yelling and the stress and the instructions and meetings, everything was coming from the newsroom.
That's yelling in a newsroom is typical.
Yes.
So elaborate, Gregg.
Oh, it's just so hectic. I'm a former sports editor at a couple of papers, and you yell at each other, you fight, and then 2 minutes later you're out having beer with the people you were fighting with over. It's just very stressful.
It's very stressful, and it was mostly men that I worked with. So I was a little out of my element and had to kind of fight for myself. And if I was on the phone trying to call talk to a reporter or a cameraman in the field, I would have to yell at people to shut up because it was too loud. I couldn't hear what was going on, and I had work to be done. And I had no quiet place. It was years and years later that I finally got an office attached to the newsroom.
So some of the early people, the talent that you were working with.
Well, I was working, the sweetest woman I've ever met, Linda Cardwell. May she rest in peace. She's out of Birmingham. Jennifer Mills, of course, Brian Hammonds. There were a lot of people that had come from Birmingham. Our Joe Gibbs, of course, our CEO and founder. Also, our first employee, Philip Hurst, who was a bartender at Shoal Creek. He was the first employee ever hired. Way before the Golf Channel launched, he was hired. And
in what capacity?
He was hired by, so Joe Gibbs, the story has it, Joe Gibbs was a member at Shoal Creek. Philip Hurst was a bartender there. And they developed some type of friendship, and Philip Hurst is really a smart guy. And Joe hired him to do research to see if a 24-hour network dedicated to golf would survive.
So a guy who's slinging drinks basically put in motion this whole, whether it would work or not.
Yes, he was like Joe's prodigy. And so Philip always, to this day, have all my respect for being that first employee hired. I don't know what he was paid. I don't know what he did, but it was his information that he gathered that launched the Golf Channel.
How were things being developed at that time? Was it just people throwing ideas against the wall and seeing what stuck?
That's exactly what happened. I mean, people didn't even know what time to go in. Like I worked on our flagship news show called Golf Central, and luckily enough, they had hired other TV people. So the producers knew that there had to be a meeting. My first impression of that was it was usually not on time, and they were really long, not productive meetings with a lot of people not knowing what to do because they hired golf people and they hired TV people, and it was just a mix that had to get used to each other and the work ethics. But ideas of what should we lead the show with, what should the first block of the show be, the second block, the third block, and it was just ideas, and it changed throughout the day. The rundown, we called it.
And as you moved up the food chain, I guess, throughout your career, how did that evolve?
Well, the first promotion, I went from footage coordinator, which I didn't even know what that was as a title. I didn't know if I was going to be measuring the distance between the golf ball and the hole or getting an actual past television coverage. At the time, the PGA Tour did not have an organized setup for PGA Tour footage and the same with the LPGA. But that was the job I was supposed to do when I first started, except I didn't really know. I never got a job description. So I did a little bit of everything. And that's what helped me move up through the company quickly because things just got thrown my way and I would handle it.
Did you coordinate getting footage from tournaments and all that? Because I mean now there's such a rights issue with footage. You just don't go out to the golf course and shoot 3 minutes of PGA Tour and then post it to social media. They frown on that.
Exactly. I was calling local, because I had come from local news, I was calling local TV stations in the TV market where maybe an LPGA event had been in the past, or the PGA Tour, to get last year's interview with the winner and their highlights. And then I'd get it either FedExed overnight or fed in via satellite, which was really expensive to do that.
Did you have a budget?
I don't know if there was a budget. I tried to always just bribe people, like in local news. I would say, "Hi, this is Joy calling from the Golf Channel. I'm looking for last year's final round coverage that you all shot, all your raw tapes if you still have them, or your cut down highlight package, and winner's interview." And what I can do is, in return, I can send you a shirt from the Golf Channel or a Golf Channel hat.
Sounds about right.
And most men in the sports department, there weren't many women, but most of the sports directors wanted a Golf Channel hat or a shirt. So that would get it. And so that's how I didn't know what the budget was. I think they just let me have like a free-for-all with these people because they knew I'd bribe them.
That's giving swag to people in the news industry is a tried and true method.
Oh yeah, I even did trades. I remember we needed some weather video, and so who do you call? I called the golf. I mean, I called the Golf Channel. I called the Weather Channel in Atlanta, and I got to be friends with them, and so we traded swag. So I had a Weather Channel jacket, and I sent them my Golf Channel jacket that had been given to me.
I can't imagine how chaotic. I mean, I guess you had to be there to see how chaotic things were.
You did. It was crazy. I mean, it almost was like unethical how crazy it was, because you had me on the phone wheeling and dealing and trying to get this video in, and the producer's saying, "Oh, I need it for tonight's show," or "I need it by tomorrow." So that, changed the deadlines. And then the story might get dropped. I mean, that was just Golf Central, but also, we had a whole sales department running around saying, "Oh no, don't air that story because that might be a potential client of ours." And we had, the right hand and the left hand had to learn how to talk to each other at the Golf Channel in the early days.
Yeah. Advertising and sales never meshed well with news side reporting.
No, they wouldn't. And we sat in different areas, so we didn't see each other too much. And as soon as I saw a salesperson coming, I'm like, "Oh no, that's where something's getting dropped."
For us, it was, if they were coming over, there was going to be more work involved for something.
Yes, more work, or something was going to, more work. That's it.
Yeah. Well, Joey, were you involved in some of the other shows during the early days in addition to Golf Central?
Yes, I was involved with getting footage or information, whatever was needed for Golf Talk Live. We had a show called Golf Today. All the early shows. I had my hands in everything.
Tell us some stories about, I guess you're working with Kessler.
Peter Kessler. So he was a funny guy, always very nice to me, had that deep voice, and he used to be very nice, and he would tell me that I was the hardest working girl in show business. I don't know if that was true, but that was his line to me.
Was it his line to the other? Yeah,
the others. Yeah, I probably to the other women that worked there too. There weren't very many of us at the beginning, so. But anything the shows needed, and Peter was a force to be reckoned with. He had come from HBO boxing, I think, and he knew his golf, and he did a great job on Golf Talk Live, and anything I could do to help that show, whatever I was asked. And it's funny because I just saw the Golf Talk Live producer of a month ago at a pgatour event. He was freelancing for the Golf Channel. So he came back to do some freelance work. But I haven't seen Peter Kessler lately, but I did see Joe Gibbs. He was actually at the Costco in Orlando a while back.
I never pegged him for a Costco guy.
I didn't either, and he was there alone, and I heard that Southern accent, and I went up to him, and I said, "Are you Joe Gibbs?" And he smiled and looked at me. He said, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, I'm Joy Green, but I used to be Joy Henneberger. I worked in news at the Golf Channel." And he said, "Oh, I remember you. How are you doing?"
Yeah. That's funny.
That's funny, but I heard Peter Kessler has lived in Orlando for a long time. I haven't seen him. I was a friend of his on Facebook, but there's a bunch of us original Golf Channel employees that we all stay in touch with each other.
I bet there's no stories told at those if y'all get together for lunch or anything.
Oh yeah, yeah. There are, and those can't be repeated because they're all about the early days. They're all about the wild and crazy early days.
When you look back at the foundation, actually, you guys were the foundation of what has evolved today. How proud are you of the work you guys were able to do, especially in a, I don't know, semi-professional environment?
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't very professional, but we got a lot done on a shoestring budget. And then we'd all go to the ale house after Golf Central ended and laugh about the day. Even the people who had been fighting and yelling and screaming at each other and the stress.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a, if you've never been in those newsroom dynamics, it's hard to explain exactly how stressful it is. And I'm coming from a newspaper background. I can't imagine what it's like trying to produce 3 or 4 shows a day, on the fly like that.
Oh yeah, there was constant action going on in the studio, and we all had or I had access to with these TVs that we had, these television monitors in the newsroom, and there was a channel where you could watch what was going on in the studio. So even though we're having our Golf Central meeting in the newsroom, there might be another show taping a segment in the studio, and so I was always watching that. And in the early days in the newsroom, Tiger Woods would come in. This is the middle of 97. He would come in and he'd bring his best friend Jerry Chang, and they would watch old tapes of European tour coverage. And I always kept that channel on, going on for the studio, what was going on in the studio. And if I had known then what I know now, that Tiger Woods became who he was, not just some scrawny kid with his friend and their food they brought in from McDonald's, I would not have kept that channel on, what was going on in the studio. He probably saw that. I don't even know he paid attention. He was so young, and that was kind of an interesting time too, that because Tiger lived in Orlando, and he would just come up to the Golf Channel. I guess he had permission from somebody, and he would come in and be in the newsroom with all the, there'd be chaos going on. But that channel, I always had one channel in the newsroom, one monitor on what was going on in the studio, and there was always something going on in the studio.
Some kind of chaos.
Either. I remember one time Brian Hammonds was on the instruction set for the instructionals, and he was hitting golf balls. I thought it was into a net, but the golf ball ricocheted and went and hit one of the lights out, and that was at least a $15,000 bulb that broke.
Wow. How many studios? I want to come back to Tiger in a second, but how many studios were there in there?
Well, there was, gosh, I don't remember. There was probably 3 or 4. There was Golf Talk Live had its own set. It was one big studio. It was kind of like round or square. I'm not sure, but there was Golf Talk Live had a set. Golf Central had a set. Golf Today, and there might have been there was a putting green area for when we brought golf instructors in.
I remember that.
How often did Mr. Palmer show up and walk through the studio?
Well, I mean, he's a busy man. He did come in from time to time. He had his own parking space in front of the Golf Channel that said Chairman of the Golf Channel. And so one time he came by, I think he was taping a segment in our studio, or he was coming to see Joe Gibbs or having a meeting. And I noticed that I was outside when he drove up, and he didn't park in his parking space. And so I immediately went up to him and introduced myself before he went inside. And I said, Mr. Palmer, you have your own parking space. And he said, oh, I do? And I pointed to it. And I said, yeah, you're the chairman of the Golf Channel. He goes, I didn't know that. And he parked right next to it. And I said, can I park in your space? And he just kind of laughed.
That's great.
So going back to Tiger, why was he coming there to watch old footage?
Well, I didn't know, but what I guessed at the time is that he wanted to see tournaments that were going to be, he might be playing overseas.
Yeah.
So we had the television rights to European tour coverage.
Mm-hmm.
So he would want tapes. He specifically, and I was so busy because I was working, he would ask me because there was nobody else around. Everyone was busy, but I was kind of sitting near the newsroom. So he would ask me for, I think he asked me one time for the Dunhill Links Championship tapes. He asked for different specific, he was very specific on the tapes. And they were all European tour events. So I would walk him down to the library because I didn't want to mess it up and give him the wrong tapes. And the library would pull those tapes for him to watch. And then I kind of looked over his shoulder to see, and it looked like he was studying the golf courses that were on the European tour.
Interesting.
Brush with greatness.
Mm.
Yeah, I guess so. But he'd bring McDonald's only for himself, and he'd snack on his McDonald's. I mean, it was fine. It didn't matter. But I didn't, he just, to me, I mean, we're similar. We're about the same age, but to me, he looked like a little kid. He looked kind of like Urkel back then.
So what other brushes with greatness besides Mr. Palmer and Tiger did you have?
Oh gosh, anyone who came into the Golf Channel to be on Golf Talk Live in studio, all of our anchors, who a lot of them had golf, backgrounds. In the early days, you remember Mark Lai.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was so many. I remember one time Colin Montgomery was in the hallway and he asked me where the bathroom was.
We're getting stuff that nobody else has on this podcast. Tiger Woods eating McDonald's. Was his go-to Big Mac combo?
I don't know. I think it was cheeseburgers.
Colin Montgomery looking for the bathroom. I mean, you don't get this stuff everywhere.
Yeah, but there was no one else just sitting near the newsroom, kind of trying to, answer phones and run tapes to the control room and master control. So there was only a handful of us that were always around the newsroom.
Joe Gibbs, what was his involvement on the day-to-day? I mean, was he in the newsroom overseeing things, or
no? He was in a very important meetings. So all the executives sat in an area. They had offices near Joe Gibbs, which was called the Green Carpet. And that's where executives were, and HR was near there. And so he was mostly down there, but always in important meetings. And usually when Arnold Palmer came in, that's where he went, to the Green Carpet. You don't go to the Green Carpet if you don't work there, unless you're maybe in trouble. And I only went once, and I was in trouble, and it was funny.
It didn't have anything to do with sending a Golf Channel banner to the set of Happy Gilmore.
No, and no one even knew I did that. I just randomly got the call in the newsroom from some crew member for this up and coming movie that they were filming called Happy Gilmore, and they needed some props. And I said, well, we don't just give stuff out for free. So whatever I send to you, you have to send it back. And they said, well, could you send us a box with something, some signage? And so I told them I got their name and address, and I went looking in a back office and found an original Golf Channel banner, and that said The Golf Channel, because that's what Golf Channel used to be called, The Golf Channel. And I sent them a banner, and a few years they used it in this movie. And when the movie Happy Gilmore came out, and we had some Golf Channel on-air talent that was in the movie, Brian Hammonds and Mike Ritz, when the movie came out, I saw the banner that I had sent them, and about a year later they mailed it back to me.
Oh, wow.
I'm surprised you got it back.
Yeah.
No. Me too.
So are you going to spill why you got called to the Green Carpet?
I'll tell you what I did. I was my intention was to save the company money. I had driven to cover a Golden Bear Tour event with a new on-air employee named Rich Lerner. And Rich had come over from doing radio, And so I was with him at a kind of like a practice event. It was a Golden Bear Tour event. It was not PGA Tour level, although a lot of those players did go on to play the PGA Tour. But it was just to take a radio guy and see how he is being a TV guy type thing. And my job was to get the footage back to the Golf Channel in Orlando for that night's Golf Central show. So if we had fed that video via satellite, it would have cost us about $1,200. And that was at the local station in West Palm where I worked. And that was my discount. So I decided to make my own decision on this. I made an executive decision to drive the footage back to Orlando, which would be free, and then just have a tight turnaround to get that footage on the air. And I drove back to Orlando. I got pulled over and I got a speeding ticket. And so because I'd worked in local news, we always, when we got parking tickets, we just turned them into the assignment desk to get paid. Well, so I turned mine in on an expense report, and that got kicked back from the green carpet. And I got called down to explain myself.
And did they end up paying it?
No, they told me to never risk my life for the Golf Channel.
I can get that.
Evidently, things worked out with Rich Lerner too.
Yeah, they worked out really well with Rich Lerner. I wasn't necessarily teaching him anything he didn't know. I was just supposed to go with him and make sure that footage came back to the Orlando somehow. And I just thought I'd save the company money. That was my deal. I would give people hats and shirts and in return get stuff for free. Well, my old station in West Palm wouldn't do that. So I thought, well, I'll just drive it back. It was about an hour and a half drive, and that's free. But it wasn't. It ended up costing me money.
No good deed goes unpunished.
No, and I got called to the green carpet, and then I kind of became a legend in the newsroom.
Because you went on the green carpet?
Well, for what I got called for. No one could believe I had done that because none of them had come from local news. And that's commonplace. That was every day in local news. You get a parking ticket, you get a speeding ticket, you turn it in, and it's paid.
I just have this vision of you walking down the green carpet and everybody in the newsroom thinking you're probably not coming back.
Yeah, no, I had been paged over the intercom system.
Oh, even
That's
worse.
even worse.
It was horrible. I knew I was a goner. I couldn't think of what I did because I was so loyal. I never did anything that I would get in trouble for. At least I didn't think.
Who was coming up with all the ideas for the shows and let's try this, would this show work at this time frame? Was that just a collaborative effort?
It was a collaborative effort. The producers for Golf Talk Live would come up who their go-to guests were. For Golf Central, I mean, that was a daily show, so that had the most content needed. The producers, but we always had a noon production meeting, and once things got organized at the Golf Channel, we had a noon production meeting. A lot of story ideas came from my department, which was the news department, but we also had to get content, and that involved other departments like operations, production, working together to get a cameraman, a reporter, or producer out covering stories, local stories or stories that they had to travel to, and that involved the travel department. So we were constantly trying to come up with story ideas in news, in production, in individual shows, but the producers ultimately were responsible for what was going to be in the shows.
And when you look at the Golf Channel today, how different is it from those days?
It is so different. It's so much cleaner and faster, and it's more graphics driven and so many sponsored elements. It's really different. I mean, and I know they're doing the shows, at least Golf Central, they're doing it at Stamford, Connecticut. So it's so different. I don't even recognize it from the early days. I would have never thought it would turn into what it is now.
You think it's changed for the better?
I wouldn't say for the better. I don't want to say anything negative about the Golf Channel, but in the early days, I loved doing stories on where are they now type stories. of former pros. Like if I worked at the Golf Channel now, that's what I would be pushing, the where are they now stories, like the stories about a normal person like Robert Landers, who had lived on a cow pasture and was a farmer and practiced his golf and made the Champions Tour, or back then it was called the Senior Tour. And
Yeah.
what are they doing now? I'd be pushing for more of those stories, more human interest stories than sponsored elements and highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah, I maybe we should get you hired back at the Golf Channel to do that, because I'm with you. I love those where are they now stories. I can't. It's still hard to believe it's being produced in Connecticut too. I mean, you just always thought the Golf Channel was an Orlando institution.
Well, yeah, and I just drove by this where the Golf Channel was located, and there were cars in the parking lot there. So something's going on there. It might be a part of the Golf Now company that spun off from the Golf Channel. They might be working there, but the studios and the building is still there, and the satellite farm. I mean, the structure's still there. So that means there's a studio in there, and hallways and cubicles and carpeting and a break room and a kitchen. So the building is still there.
How satisfying is it to look back and say, "Hey, I was a part of this," whether it's a small part, an integral part of what it's become today?
It's pretty cool. I was a very small part in a what became a very big operation. But I tell our son who plays college golf, I'm like, you don't know how cool I used to be. When I worked at the Golf Channel and even before then, and he sees the Golf Channel as it is now, looking very modern and fast paced and lots of graphics and a box and another box during commercial breaks, and he thinks it's like that. He has no idea. But I was a small part in what became an incredible network, 24-hour network dedicated to golf, and that's a niche network if I've ever heard of one.
Oh yeah. Well, that was at the beginning of the digital age when that was getting started, and being one of the original employees is pretty cool. One of the things that Gregg has always, when we're talking about, he wants to talk about the Alien Wedge commercials, the infomercials that ran during the night. You got any story there?
I remember the infomercial called The Heavy Putter.
Yeah.
And Tom Nettles, somehow, he was one of our first Golf Central reporters. He got his hands on a heavy putter, and he would walk around the newsroom with his heavy putter, and then everyone brought putters or found putters in the studio and would just be putting all day in the newsroom. Like, I'd try to be quickly walking through the newsroom to get to my cubicle so I could make a phone call, and I would trip over golf balls because of all the equipment that had been left behind from those infomercials.
That's funny.
My shift at the paper was usually like noon to midnight, so I would get home at 12:30 or 1, and you don't go straight to bed, so you turn on the Golf Channel, and there was the Alien Wedge or whatever those infomercials.
I remember that Alien Wedge. There were so many commercials, and they just aired overnight because that was cheap programming to buy at the time. And those infomercials made a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, Alien Wedge never got my money.
Oh, well, they got a lot of other people's money. And I'm sure there was an Alien Wedge there was people chipping with it in the newsroom also.
I'm sure. But so obviously you're married to a celebrity caddy.
Yeah, it's in his own mind, yes.
Is there a story behind how y'all met, or?
Yeah, I met him. So I went in 1997. I was assigned at the last minute to go cover the Panama Open down in Central America. And I was Scott Van Pelt's producer, because Scott Van Pelt, SVP, worked at the Golf Channel, and he was the reporter assigned to cover that event. So Scott and I went down to Panama to cover the event. My job was not to take care of Scott, although I ended up having to take care of him because he got really sick. But my job was to get that footage back and fed in via satellite nightly for Golf Central. that was the tournament where I met Damon Green in the airport, in the Miami airport, where we got on a charter with all the golfers to go to the Panama Open. Scott was really sick. And when we got to Panama, Van Pelt had a fever of like 103, 104. It was really high. And I had briefly met Damon in the airport. And then, but my job was to make sure Scott was okay because I couldn't do his job and my job. So I went and got a witch doctor from the tournament director, set me up with a witch doctor to get Scott Van Pelt a shot of penicillin so that he could be a reporter that week and do his job. And during the week, I kind of got to know Damon. And then there was nothing happened because I'm professional. I'm not one of these ladies out here looking for a boyfriend. I was there to do a job with my coworker, Scott. But about 6 months later, I was covering that Golden Bear Tour event with Rich Lerner. And I met up with Damon Green again. And I asked him what he had been up to since I'd met him in Panama. And he said, "Oh, I'm happily divorced." And I said, "Oh, that's funny. Well, if you're ever in the Orlando area, come by the Golf Channel and I'll give you a tour." So that was my line.
And the rest is history, they say. Right?
The rest is history.
He didn't tell us that story earlier.
Oh no, he doesn't. He doesn't remember. All that man thinks about is golf. He's not thinking about how we met and how lucky he is to have met me and that I did give him a tour of the Golf Channel.
What kind of getting off topic, Golf Channel type, but how is it being married? Or he says he's trying to semi-retire or retire. What was it like being married to a tour caddy?
Well, he was always playing professionally as he caddied. So it's been a very interesting life. I mean, I've gotten to attend, at least 6 or 7 Ryder Cups and a handful of President's Cups. And then I got to go to events that Damon's been playing in, whether it was U.S. Open or U.S. Senior Opens or events on the Champions Tour once he turned 50. It's been a pretty wild ride, raising our son Gunnar, who was a baseball kid, and I was a travel ball mom while Damon's out on the road caddying, and I'm going to baseball tournaments. And we always had our son, when Dad came home, they would go hit balls or putt, but our kid loved baseball. And so I was a full-time baseball mom, full-time caddy wife. And when I stopped working at the Golf Channel, I took over. My focus then, for job-wise, was to become Damon's bookkeeper and pay more attention to his booking his travel. And so I'm a travel agent, bookkeeper. I was a baseball mom. Now I'm a golf mom. Now my kid's playing Division I golf at University of South Florida. So he had a change of heart for sports his senior year of high school. So it's just been a kind of a wild ride being a caddy wife and a player wife, sometimes a player wife. And I'm treated way better when you're a player wife than a caddy wife.
Yeah, I think that's, but it's, caddies are becoming more respected and getting more.
Oh yeah.
Than back in the day. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I remember Bay Hill, when Damon first started caddying at Bay Hill, for the caddies, they would have just a table with like a box of donuts on it. And now they have a caddy room with air conditioning and breakfast, lunch, and snacks and drinks all day long. I mean, it's amazing the transformation caddying and the profession of caddying on the PGA Tour has changed over the last 25 years or so.
Wearing either the player wife or the caddy wife hat, which event was the most fun for you to attend?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've been to 2 Masters, but I didn't have a ticket for every day. And the caddies don't get tickets, so I had to get the tickets from Zach Johnson. So I did like going to the Masters, but I didn't really get the full week experience. The best, I'd have to say all 6 or 7 Ryder Cups that I've been to as a caddy wife. That's where we were treated like part of the team. We stayed in the same hotel on the same floor as the US Team USA. We were allowed in the team room. We had food for us. We had inside the rope. I had this inside the rope access, this patch thing that I wore on my arm. I was given a little square piece of foam to sit on inside the rope, so I didn't block the view of any of the paying spectators. I would say definitely, probably all the Ryder Cups. I loved them all, and we were just treated so well.
Yeah. So those were U.S. based and European based.
Yeah, I've been to Wales and Scotland, wherever it was. I went to England for my first Ryder Cup with Damon as a caddy wife was when he was caddying for Scott Hoke, and that was at the Belfry.
Nice.
That's pretty nice there.
Oh no, you know what? I do have a favorite. I just remembered. Gosh, there's been so many. I mean, the Ryder Cups are right up there. But my very favorite tournament ever, oh my gosh, how could I forget? It was only one time because they don't have the event anymore. It was called the Grand Slam, and it was in Bermuda.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
And Damon ended up playing the Bermuda Open either the week before. Yeah, the week before. We went a week early, and he played the Bermuda Open, and we had to pay for our own hotel. But he got so much publicity because he finished third in the Bermuda Open that the PGA of America ended up paying all of our bills for both weeks.
Oh, wow.
That's very cool of them.
Very nice, yeah.
Yeah, and I had another caddy wife tell me during the Grand Slam, because she had been to several, because her husband was Fluff. Her husband is Fluff, who caddied for Tiger Woods. She told me to be sure to go ahead and buy something in the gift shop that it would be taken care of. And I was like, oh no, I'm not doing that. And she said, do it. And so I bought a hat that was like $80, and we never got a bill for that hat.
That's how the other half live, Chris.
That's it. Very
Yeah,
nice.
and we always brought our kid, who was, remember, a baseball kid, now D1 golfer at USF. We always brought our son with us, so he went to the Grand Slam. He's been to all the Ryder Cups, all the President's Cups, and I was there as a caddy wife, just enjoying any little crumbs I could get.
That's cool.
When you were there at the Ryder Cups with Damon, did you do a lot of off the course stuff? Because there's some really cool places, some historic places.
Oh yeah, that's all I did. So we didn't have access to a courtesy car or anything, but I would get rides from the courtesy car drivers to take us places. Like in Wales, we went off site to visit places. Scotland, the same thing. I would just talk a courtesy car driver. I would just say, I'm a caddy wife. I don't have the correct badge, but if we could get a ride into town, my son needs to see the area, and we're so excited to be here. And usually I could sweet talk them into giving us a ride, and sometimes they waited and would give us a ride back.
So let's go back a minute. You were at the Golf Channel, and Tiger's coming in to watch footage, and now you're a caddy wife at the Ryder Cup, and he's playing. Did you guys have any interaction there?
Not really. Tiger always had his people around, his handlers around him. So not really. I mean, Damon did, but I didn't. And Tiger wouldn't even know that I was the one who would help him get the tapes from the tape library for him to watch when he had just turned pro. He wouldn't remember. So I haven't really had any interaction with him, but my son and Steve Williams' son, when Steve Williams was caddying for him, used to have play dates together. And so I guess indirectly, one time I was able to go pick them up, and they were staying it was during the Doral tournament, and Gunnar, our son, and Jet, Steve Williams' son, had a play date. So I went to go pick them up at Tiger's yacht, Privacy. And I was so excited because I was getting on board. I was going to get up that gangplank or whatever they call it. I was determined. And that captain was waiting for us in the parking lot, and I never got to go on Privacy.
Oh, man. Bummer.
but I wanted to. And then he ended up picking her. We had our play date at a local place. I think we went to the Miami Zoo, and the captain ended up coming and picking her up, and Jet, their son. So I didn't get to go back. But I think he knew, he must have known I wanted to get on that privacy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not at those Ryder Cups, I didn't get to hang around Tiger or see him. I mean, I saw him. I was in the team room. I had access to the team room, and Damon was around him. I mean, I shared a golf cart at one tournament, and they were going over strategy, and I was eavesdropping, but he didn't talk to me.
Yeah.
I said, do you still play?
No, I don't. I don't have time for that. I'm a busy golf mom and caddy wife, and I spend enough time at the golf course that I don't enjoy the game or my skill. I never did, really. It's such a frustrating game.
Joy, thank you so much. This hour has flown by.
It's been a joy.
Thank you. Thank you both. I appreciate it. It's kind of different being a caddy wife and a player wife. I like being on the player wife side more than the caddy wife, but the caddy wife is actually paid better overall over the course of Damon's career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for spending some time with us, sharing your stories, especially our early Golf Channel days, and maybe we can visit again sometime soon.
That's awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. Chris, that was a really fun conversation with Joy Green. Hearing those behind-the-scenes stories from the early days of the Golf Channel, moments like young Tiger Woods showing up around the studio, they really kind of give you a different perspective of how the game and the Golf Channel has evolved.
Yeah, Greg, it does. And if you enjoy conversations like these, stories from people who've lived in the game from the inside, make sure you subscribe to the Cart Barn Podcast so you don't miss another upcoming episode.
And we've got more conversations with people from all corners of the golf world, players, broadcasters, course architects, and people behind the scenes of the game.
Yeah, we've got another great story coming your way next week. So until then, we'll catch you next time on another edition of the Cart Barn Podcast.